Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Force here with another episode of Don't Suck, your guide to heroics here in Warlords of Draenor. Today we'll be taking a look at the heroic version of Upper Blackrock Spire, starting off here with the first boss, Orebender Goro Shun. We begin by disactivating those rune conduits all around the room, and then you just engage him here on the top of the platform. Now, the reason we fight him up here, because we've got those big orbs, those electric pulses rotating around the room that deal absolutely massive damage. Now, as a tank, you're just going to try to mitigate some of that damage, and this shrapnel nova can actually be avoided by standing halfway to about 2/3 of the way up that platform. Not a lot of people seem to know that or just do anything about it, but you can avoid a lot of that damage. And then at some point, he is going to go into this phase in which he calls down Thunder Catastrophe. Now, when this happens, you're going to want someone to go, or one or two people to go around the room and deactivate these conduits here, while avoiding those electric pulses, because again, they deal some pretty intense, massive damage. And then you just hop right back on the ramp. Now, ideally, it's going to be DPS that goes down to do that, because the tank wants to be here to pick the boss back up as soon as it stops. But, you know, in doing pickup groups, I found a lot of times people just aren't paying attention or don't know what to do, so I have to end up doing some of the important stuff, such as deactivating these things, because if you don't, your group's going to continuously take massive area of effect damage, and that damage increases throughout the course of the fight. Now, these lodestone spikes here in the heroic version, they have a magnetic field to them, which is going to mean that when you walk by them, they're going to slow you up and sort of push you away. And this makes it so that you're a lot more likely to get hit by those electric pulses. So just be aware of that. That's sort of the extra mechanic for heroic, those lodestone spikes getting that magnetic field. Now again, as this progresses, he's going to activate more of these, and his area of effect damage is going to become greater and greater. So you want to burn through him as fast as possible and get, I just got nailed by that, luckily I'm a tank, and get as few of these phases as you can. The faster you burn through him, and the less amount of these phases you get, the more likely you are to survive, just because this area damage from him becomes a bit intense. But this is going to basically be it. So quick little synopsis here for the tank. You want to disrupt the power conduits if your DPS isn't doing it. Try to avoid that shrapnel nova damage by standing 2/3 to halfway up the ramp, and then mitigate that blade of steel attack with anything you have. DPS also wants to disrupt the power conduits and avoid shrapnel nova if you can. Same thing goes for the healing, and then for the healer, make sure you're maintaining line of sight on anyone who jumps down in case they get hit by those electric pulses. Our next boss is Chirac. He's got two adds with him at the start of the fight, and these adds you actually want to kill them immediately, first thing, because they have got a cleave attack as well as an eruption cast, both of which will deal quite a bit of damage. So DPS the adds down first thing. Now as to the boss himself, well, he's got a couple of different things that he's going to do. So you can see these eruptions going down, and then they also have a cleave attack, so any melee DPS needs to stay out of the range of those adds. The boss is going to cast this debilitating fixation. Now I missed that one there, but ideally as a tank or anyone who can spell interrupt, you want to stop that from going through. It's going to have them fixate on a target and chase them down, dealing damage to them. So if you can, you want to stop that from going through. He's also going to put out these vile blood serums, and you can see those spreading all over the ground, so make sure no matter where you are, you saw we interrupted that fixation there, no matter who you are, tank, DPS, healer, that you're avoiding those, and the more spread out you are, the less likely you are to get nailed with that stuff, so the group wants to spread if they can. And then the last little thing that he does is he casts this rejuvenation serum on himself. Now it's a magical effect, so what that means is it can be dispelled. Now I myself, as a warrior, have the ability to dispel a magic effect when I deal my shield bash attack. Other than that, any class who has an offensive dispel, you want to get rid of that rejuvenation serum as soon as it happens. That way he's not healing himself up for a bit. Now in the heroic version, he is going to randomly target a player with the salve of toxic fumes, which will deal area damage around his target. And so if you get hit with that, you're going to want to move. Now, it is a poison debuff, however, so that means that anyone who can dispel poison debuffs will be able to take care of that. And funnily enough, this is actually the first time I've seen this. I think I've run Heroic Upper Blackrock Spire around 10 times now, and there's a rare spawn. This rare spawn, if you get him and kill him, he is going to drop, I believe he dropped a pet and then some sort of a weapon for someone. Not everyone got it though, only single person got the pet. So a quick recap of what you should be paying attention to as the tank. You want to be interrupting the debilitating fixation and face the adds away from the party until they die, and then also avoid that vile blood serum on the ground. DPS wants to kill the adds first and avoid any cleave damage, interrupt debilitating fixation if you can, and then spread out for that vile blood serum. And then lastly, as a healer, dispel the rejuvenating serum, or if anyone else like me as a warrior can dispel it, go ahead and do so, and then spread out for those vile blood serums. And also remove that salve of toxic fumes if you can remove poison. And that is that. Our third boss is Commander Tharbeck. The fight starts off with you having to go through three waves of enemies as the tank. Run up to this gate here, because before the fight even starts, you can actually aggro those dudes through the gate, not only get a bunch of threat on them, but deal a significant amount of damage to those flyers. In fact, if your group's paying attention, you can kill most of those flyers before they even hit the air for all of the waves. Every single wave you can do that. So there's just 3 waves of adds. It's pretty straightforward. If you gather them up like I do especially, it'll be that much easier. And then once you break through the 3 waves of adds, we move on to the boss. So the boss is going to come down riding his mount, the Sky Reaver. So you're first going to start off by just grabbing onto the mount and engaging him. Now what's going to happen is once the mount gets to 50%, the boss is going to dismount off of him. But the mount himself, the Sky Reaver, 2 things you need to avoid. Number 1 is that flame attack, which one of our DPS just died to. That's incinerating breath. He also does a noxious spit. So while the mount is alive, those 2 things are going to happen. The guy who just asked how he died, he stood in that fire. It blew his face off. And then you can also see that poison spit on the ground. That's the other thing that the Sky Reaver is going to do. Now, once the Sky Reaver is dead, let's talk about what the boss does that you have to pay attention to. Well, he's got this Iron Reaver charge in which he's going to face a target and just launch towards him. So that can be sidestepped if you're paying attention to what he's doing. He's also going to toss out these imbued iron axes. They're going to spin around the room and deal incredible damage whenever you hit them. So the best thing I found is that don't rely really on your DPS in a pickup group to be dodging those. Just pull the boss away from them whenever you see them incoming. Just keep moving the boss around as soon as you see them going anywhere near him. It's going to be your safest bet. Now, when he reaches at 70% health, he's going to actually gain Iron Rage, which increases his damage. So once this happens, as the tank, make sure you're mitigating. And then at 60% health, Obby, our little friendly blue dragon, comes down, and she will help dealing a little. She's got like this frontal cone attack, and she does some basic melee attacks. So if you can keep her around the boss, like for that spell that you just saw cast there, but he ran away. There was nothing I could do about that. But it's going to help just DPS a little bit. And then we also are going to have these little flying dudes come down, so make sure you gather them up as the tank. Quick recap of the rolls. Avoid the incinerating breath, noxious spit, and imbued iron axes, no matter which you are. As a tank, and anyone else even, sidestep the Iron Reaver and mitigate those iron axes and Iron Rage damage. DPS is basically doing all the same. And then as a healer, going to be heavy damage on the tank during Iron Rage and any Iron Axe damage he takes, so make sure you're aware of that. And we just have 2 more bosses left. First, it is Ragewing the Untamed. Ragewing is going to come up once you enter this bridge room here, and he's going to start off by just being tanked straight up, nothing too crazy there, but he's going to spit out some magma spits, and then more importantly, he's going to do this engulfing fire attack, which will sweep the bridge. So that'll be coming in just 1 second, and what you need to pay attention to when this is happening, you'll see what direction he's facing, and then you want to run the opposite direction, unlike 3 of our friends here who managed to get nailed by it. It's pretty easy to avoid as long as you're just watching the boss. Now, we do need to stay somewhat spread out because of that magma spit, otherwise it's all going to clump around us. But if you can try to stay spread out around the center, it'll make it easier to avoid that. Now, once he gets to 70% health, he's going to leave, do a bombarding firestorm attack, and then summon these raging whelps. Everyone try to get to the center there. It's going to make it the easiest for the tank to pick them all up, and then you just want to AoE them down while trying to avoid that firestorm damage that's coming down. Once he's done casting, even if these whelps are still alive, he's just going to come back down, and we're going to basically go through the same thing again. He'll be spitting out magma spit, tossing out that engulfing fire, run away from it, and then he's going to fly back up in the air once he gets to 40% health. But besides that, everything is pretty much staying the same. So you just keep spanking him. He gets to 40% health, goes back up in the air, and then he's going to summon another set of whelps. Now, however, this time what's going to happen is once you're done dealing with the whelps, instead of going back and just flying next to the bridge, he's going to land right on top of the bridge. So once he does, the tank's going to want to pick him up immediately. The whelps may very well still be alive, so DPS wants to AoE them down. Now, also during this phase, he gains Burning Rage, which is an enrage effect. And as an enrage effect, if you are a class that can de-enrage something, like with a tranquilizing shot, for example, you'll want to do that. If not, it's a good time to pop your cooldowns for extra damage, and the healer is going to have to pay extra attention to the tank. So as a tank, you want to tank him in the middle of the bridge and then mitigate damage for during this Burning Rage phase, as well as any of the stacking Ripping Claw debuff, which is just a dot that you have. DPS needs to make sure you're AoEing the whelps and removing Burning Rage if you have that ability. And then as the healer, the tank will be taking heavy damage during Ripping Claw / Burning Rage, so just be prepared for that. And now on to our final boss fight. This is Warlord Gsella, probably the hardest boss in what may very well be the hardest heroic here in Warlords of Draenor. It's at least the heroic that takes the longest. Now the fight starts off, you're just tanking her in the middle, pretty straightforward. She's then going to do the Black Iron Cyclone. She's going to target someone randomly. Whoever it is wants to run out of the group so that people aren't getting hit. Also, during this phase, she's going to randomly cast this Rebounding Blade. So that's why, for that reason, it's good for the group to be semi-spread around the center so that the Rebounding Blade doesn't ricochet too much and hit too many people. Once you get her to 60% health, she's going to be leaping on a dragon, and this is going to happen. We're going to get 3 Black Iron Worm Riders coming down, as well as we're going to start off the Emberscale Ironflight's Burning Breath. So they're going to be coming down and leaving massive amounts of fire breath on the platform. So we're going to pick up these adds, you're going to DPS them down as fast as possible, because after 40 seconds, Gsella returns, regardless of whether or not you've killed these guys. So DPS them down. You can also, if you want, you can drag them to the fire breath. They're going to take damage from that. And then she comes back down after those 40 seconds, and the same thing is happening. However, she's doing the same stuff as the first phase, but now with this Burning Breath. Now, everyone needs to avoid, you're going to take like almost fatal damage if you walk through this stuff. Once more, as a tank in a pug, I'm not relying on my DPS to know to move, so I am purposefully moving her far away from that fire breath whenever possible, but not too far, because in heroic, her destructive smite ability gains a knockback, which means she can knock you off of the ledge. So as the tank, you don't want to go too close to the ledge, because you will literally get knocked off and just die. But drag her away from this fire breath with your camera zoomed all the way out. You can see these dragons coming down before they start breathing fire. So as long as you're looking, it should be pretty easy to avoid. However, I've been with many groups that somehow managed to get nailed by the fire breath almost every single time. Just play with your camera zoomed out and don't stand in the fire. It's not that hard. Tank, don't stand near the edge so you don't get knocked back. Make sure you're aggroing those adds at the 60% phase, and then tank Gsella away from those incoming flames to save your DPS. Spread out for the Rebounding Blade if you're DPS. Bloodluster in that last phase makes you get through it faster, obviously. And then as a healer, make sure you're spreading out for Bounding Blade, and keep an eye on the tank during those heavy phases. That does it, guys. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this guide and now know how to not suck at Upper Blackrock Spire.